As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture these stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. As co-founder of Morrow Hill, Jonathan Hill oversees more than 8 million square feet of real estate Morrow Hill leases and acquires annually around the globe. Previous to his career in commercial real estate, Hill worked for LVMH, Richemont and Mary Kay to develop events and experiences featuring exclusive products for high-end clientele. These positions equipped him with the know-how to approach retail facilities from the brand's perspective. Hill assists in day-to-day operations, oversees the franchise real estate department, and works with Morrow Hill data engineers to develop proprietary technology tools that cater specifically to franchising clients. His years of experience with retail spaces allows him to guide companies to strategically reach their growth and development goals. Hill is an active board member of the Titus Center for Franchising at Palm Beach Atlantic University and mentors students in the Rinker Business School, who has a focus on franchising. Additionally, Hill is a dedicated advocate for the franchising world and meets with members of the House and Senate to promote and protect the franchise model. Hill has been publicly recognized by countless business journals nationwide for his achievements in commercial real estate. In his free time, Hill enjoys spending time with his 3 children, is a proud member of USA Hockey, and coaches local youth hockey. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. So the first thing I want to start off with is, and I start off with all of my guests asking this first question, what is your ninja skill? What are you good at? What do you do?
What are we good at? Well, we like to think we have a whole arsenal of ninja skills, Andrew. So I would say what we do is we manage the real estate process for companies. So we're essentially their real estate department if they don't have one, and we are an extension of the real estate department if they do. And we also engage in technology. We create our own proprietary real estate tools that help manage the real estate process more effectively, do all sorts of things in mapping environments, create customer segmentation models to understand who their avatars are and weight the values of them, and a bunch of nerdy stuff related to identification of customers and tracking their behavior so people can be smarter about how they go about placing locations. A lot of retail and some office and also some industrial application, very prevalent in the retail sector.
Interesting. So you said manage. What do you, I know manage is kind of a broad term. What specifically management? Is it like property management? Is it managing whole portfolios? What sort of management do you do?
Yeah, so we are the team that is responsible, a company that is responsible for opening the doors of locations, so many retail establishments. So notably, we're very prevalent in the franchise community. So franchise brands are not what many people think of as KFC or Taco Bell. It extends much more beyond that. Children's education, fitness for children, wellness, you name it. And so we work closely with those brands to guide them through the real estate process to understand what their opportunities are, negotiate those transactions, and ultimately help them open up the doors to new locations in various cities all around the country.
Interesting. Because I think with franchises, we don't think about that as a real estate side of things. We kind of think, we know that, the McDonald's side of things where McDonald's owns a lot of their own properties and they're really a real estate company that just happens to make hamburgers. But
It's right.
Go into a little bit more about that, like how that works as far as the franchise and what specifically like these franchise companies, like, Popeyes and all of this stuff, how do they leverage any of this stuff? Or I'm just, I'm curious about what makes that work for them. Beyond just having actual property, right? Or beyond having a location to do business out of.
Yeah, so we engage in the technology we provide and the services we provide for all sorts of uses. And you're right, it is much more beyond the KFCs and the Taco Bells and the Popeyes of the world, although they're out there and they're very prevalent. I think there's a large misnomer about the number of franchise businesses that are actually operating outside of that space. Also, I think there's also a lot of confusion about franchise being big business when it's much more of a small business. Is franchise business is a locally owned business that just happened to buy into a playbook that is provided them with the path of franchising. Franchising to me is not an industry, it's a methodology. And you buy into a well-written playbook that is being repeated all around the country. And so that's no different than there are many AC companies and plumbing companies and painting companies, drywall repair companies, and gutters and smoothie places and acai bowl places and so on and so forth. So the list is endless.
Yeah. So it's basically taking somebody's already established SOPs and everything else. They've got the processes and everything defined already, just buying into that and then starting a few steps ahead where somebody would if they were completely going from scratch, right?
That's right. That's right. Yep. When you go into, we like to say when you go into franchising, you don't go into, business. You go into business for yourself, but not by yourself. That's probably the best way for people to look at that. And so what's rewarding to me is I get to see someone that had a 9-to-5 job every day that they were grinding out, and now they get to buy into and do something that they're passionate about. So seeing entrepreneurs open up the doors to the locations is something I get to see every day. As a matter of fact, I get to see it happen 12, 13, 14, 1,500 times a year. That's how many we do per year. And those are all brick and mortar locations. So it's extremely satisfying for us to see those entrepreneurs live out their dreams. And they're not all big business that have 20 locations. So many of these will have less than 3 or 1 or 2 locations. So they're very localized within their community. And so we get to see the joy of people breaking away from the grind of wherever they were, whether they were a software engineer or a school teacher or whatever it is that they did, and living out their dreams.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an admirable goal, is helping those folks that feel like they need to exit that 9-to-5, because there's some of us that feel like we don't fit into that. That's not our thing. We have a passion for something and we do things for a reason, and allowing them to be able to do that, I think that's really an admirable goal.
Right. And it takes a lot of parties to come together to pull that off. It's not just real estate. It takes funding, right? Yeah. It takes business coaches to help write, solid business plans to help put them in the best possible light and make sure that they're that they know what they're getting into. It helps people, franchise consultants that help them through the journey of identifying what franchise is right for them and what that they may be best suited for. Maybe they follow their passion, maybe they follow the trail of the money, right? Or maybe it's both, right? So there are a lot of individuals, we call them suppliers to the industry, that are serving that to make those dreams become reality. And we're one of those suppliers of many.
So that's really interesting, because we don't think about franchises. We think, I want to go buy a McDonald's. I'm going to go do this. This is the amount of money. We don't think about the consultants on the other side of it and people helping us along. What roles are that? I mean, you said there was a franchise consultant, but what else is out there with that?
Yeah, so there are franchise consultants that help a entrepreneur, right, on their path to become an entrepreneur. You've heard that term. So there are consultants that help them do that, and they pick from many different franchise brands and help them understand how those brands are performing, and what the ROI on those particular brands look like, and what the setup costs are, and what they should allocate for furnitures, fixtures, and equipment, and so on and so forth. There are specialized legal services that help people understand how those franchise documents, those franchise agreements read, and help them understand them. There are real estate professionals like us that help guide them through that journey if they bought a franchise that requires a brick and mortar component to it. There are special sign vendors that work closely with franchisees that help them set up signs, special millwork providers that service the franchise sector. and many others. So there are a lot of key resources that anyone wanting to buy a franchise has the ability to receive some assistance in.
Huh. That's really interesting. I never knew there was that much that went into franchising. There was really just, it was a whole nother industry, if you will, that just around franchising. We always think about the franchise brands. Huh. So now you said that there's other types of franchising, like there's other so we think about like Popeyes, McDonald's, that's what we think about when we think of a franchise. What other things do you have that you usually help out folks with as far as franchise? So like what other industries?
Well, there are a lot. This does not require real estate, but they do in many cases engage in analytical tools that we provide, mapping tools to help plot locations to make sure that they play nice with each other. So we do work with organizations outside of the brick and mortar that may be home services. So I mentioned the power washing and the gutters and so on and so forth. So it's really interesting that you find, someone who's just been grinding it out at being a plumber, that has this great skill set, that's a great people person, that has the ability to manage, has saved up, right, and is now in the position to not only be a plumber, but now to have their own plumbing territory in which they can service in, and they have 10x return on in their annual salary because of buying into a franchise, and they grow that marketing channel, and they grow and take over plumbing marketing efforts in a certain area, or in the brick and mortar space, a children's education facility that may teach a math or a tutoring program, or a half day or a full day children's care program, where you will drop off your child for daycare for them to learn and be taken care of, right? Or your local smoothie place. So I would say it's much more dominated out in franchising outside of what we all think of as the McDonald's of the world, right? Although there are many, and there are thousands and thousands of them, there's also many others that don't fall in that category, that are franchise opportunities for people seeking.
And I think it was the reason I wanted to ask the question is I think it's important to people to realize that franchise is not just what we think a franchise is. There's a lot of different types of franchise, and it might be something like a friend of mine has a franchise in a cleaning company, and that was one of the things he helps with, some lead generation. And everything's a little bit different, and it's an industry that if you want to start a business and you don't want to go through the first 7 years where it just kind of sucks for a while, you're trying to get your marketing channels together, you could do this based on another established brand and make your own company, and even small business than that. So I think it was important. I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to kind of expand on that and what those industries are. But I know you're also talking a lot about data, and I know this is your strength, is just, I say data nerd with a lot of love, because I think data is delightful. It's a wonderful thing. What specifically do you help people with beyond the real estate side of things? What do you help people with as far as like finding locations, and what's that special niche that your software has?
Well, so we do a lot of what's called customer segmentation schemes. So that just means that we help people understand who their core customer is by attaching the traffic at a point of sale and extracting that data, and then mapping out the profiles of who those parties are, and then weighting the values of them. And then once we do that, then we can then put that into a mapping environment and say, hey, here's where these other like kind people are, and this is where they reside, this is where they live and work and play, so that we can plot locations that we can help determine, hey, we're going to place one here because it lights up crazy with your core customer. Their core customers crawling all around it. So that's called a customer segmentation scheme. That's been around for many years, although it's been perfected, and the method in which we go about extracting that data is much more precise than it ever has been before. There's also a very popular buzzword in the industry. You hear the word geofencing is pretty popular, and people will use the word mobile data or mobilytics, right? Which is the tracking of a mobile device once you opt in for location services on those apps on your mobile phone. you're giving the right for your fund to be tracked in its movement. And then those behaviors are what people like us want to know, because when you dwell in a property for an extended period of time, we understand what your habits are, right? So when you do that, we can then follow the road that you took to go to the facility, how long you dwelled there. So if we say had a customer that was comparing a shopping center from one side of the street to the other, we may say this property with Mobilytics had 1.7 million or visitors, and this one had 850,000. So that may make your decision a little easier. Or you may say, I'm looking at this shopping center, I'm looking at this space in the south end of the plaza versus the north end of the plaza, but you are confused on what road. So this goes a deeper dive beyond looking at vehicles per day and traffic counts. And that way, it then dials into that actual user and that type of customer that you want, and what roads are they taking. So then you may base your decision to go to the north or the south side based on that information. Mobilytics is a great buzzword. Everyone's wrapping their decisions around it. It's not without flaws. I don't think it's fully there yet. One of the things we're seeing is a property that has several different levels to it. Let's say the property was 8 stories, and let's say that there was retail on the first floor, and let's say that the next 3 floors were multifamily, and then the next floors above that were all office. Mm-hmm. When the mobile device enters the geofence, you don't necessarily know where it dwelled. We don't know if it went into the women's beauty facility for selling cosmetics for an hour, or if it went to visit the law firm in the office space on the 6th floor, or if it went to go visit Sally in her apartment in unit 202 for an hour. We don't necessarily know. I think that'll change, but for now, in urban environments, it could come into question. So I could spend forever talking about all of the weird data and things that we do, but we certainly look and make decisions based on fact-based guidance. Opinion-based guidance on location selection is starting to go out the window. That's what people did forever, kind of that gut feel. Hey, my wife works out in the shopping center. It's really, really busy. Andrew, so you should go here, right? So you should place your location here. And you were about to make this multi-million-dollar real estate decision or what have you on an opinion. And now we are starting to say, hey, that's great, and that you have that opinion, but I weight that opinion low, and I weight these factors much higher because I can rely upon them. Exactly. And so there are a lot of neat tools out there to do that. And then in franchising, there are a company that is scaling and has rapid growth. You have to imagine that there are letter of intents on sites, proposals that you're sending out, and you have leases that are in transition. You have open locations, and then you have locations that have been open a long time, and you have locations that have been open a short period of time. Your decisions you make around placing new locations around a location that just opened 4 months ago is different than how you may make a decision around a location that's been open for 16 months. Or if you had a franchisee here looking in this territory, and you had a franchisee here looking in this territory, you most certainly wouldn't want to be faced with a decision where you had to choose between which franchisee would receive a certain location and you would allow to open there. So tracking that behavior in a mapping environment and making sure they play all nicey with each other is really important. So exactly, we engage in mapping technology that we license.
Interesting. And I think it's like you said earlier, where it's been to this point where it's, hey, I happen to come across this place. Maybe some other people do it too, which might be hit or miss. Having the data behind it to back that up, say, yes, it's true, or no, it's not, is I think a really important thing. So yeah, absolutely. So I want to know, how did you get into this? It's a pretty niche-y sort of thing about, looking at traffic patterns and, what was the story behind getting into this industry?
Well, I've been in commercial real estate a long time. The early 2000s is when I got into commercial real estate. It seems like our conversation is really centered around franchising because I live and breathe it every day. So I entered the franchise real estate community in 2013, kind of under the notion that we would place our I guess our core values and our what made us unique and different and special. We would place it in franchising. So what did that take? Well, that took a smart gentleman in my office that said, hey, I think the franchise, if I remember it right, it was something like the franchise real estate community, we think is underserved. And we think that we can offer what we do, but in franchising. I don't think he knew what he was talking about when he said it, but he was certainly onto something. And it took a brand or two to take a chance on us and what we do. Our model is very, very different in the real estate side, and we haven't really got into that. But so it did take a group to take a chance on us. Turns out the group that took a chance on us was a very well-known name, very respected. And from there, I guess bandwagon, it took off and grew from there. Yeah, that's when we got the start there, and we continue to grow, invest in our tools and our team to continue to service the sector that's on fire.
Mm-hmm. So you said that there's also kind of another part to it besides the analytic. What other parts are in your business? Let's go back into that for a second.
Yeah. So with respect to the real estate side, we're really unique in the sense that we operate outside of what we call a chain, flag, or an alliance real estate model. And that means that for those that are listening that are not in commercial estate is similar to insurance in a way. You kind of have this in-network behavior and this out-of-network behavior. So we operate outside of the network. When we do that, that means that ownership groups and asset managers don't dictate how we negotiate on behalf of our clients. We have a fiduciary responsibility to fight like hell for them in what their needs are and what the brand is seeking. And so we are constantly pushing the value proposition of the brand with no other separate agendas. We don't represent landlords, and we have no property management assignments of any kind. So we analyze the options through the same lens that a franchisee and a franchisor would have. We think that's really important. So we have no conflict of interest. Really, really hard to find, and even harder to find in scale, meaning that you do this in scale all across the country, and it makes it to where it makes it nice to where we don't have anyone else we're serving. It is unique because most of the brands, whether you're in franchising or you're not in franchising, it doesn't matter whether you have a corporate-driven retail environment or a franchise growth model. Either way, you probably have either heard about or have experienced or used or currently using a master broker model. But as technology evolves, the good old boy cowboy broker mentality is being challenged. And it has been challenged really since the introduction of the first iPhone in 2007 into the financial crisis of 8 and 9. So in each year that passes, the way we analyze real estate and the way we make decisions, again, going back to that fact-based versus opinion-based guidance, we become more distant from that. And the way we analyze sites in 2024 and the way we guide clients through the process is vastly different than even it was 2019, for example. So it's changing at a rapid pace, but certainly our model is very different. We're what's called a dedicated client team model, which means that we build our professionals around our brands, and we scale and we grow with them. So we are not subbing out transactions to other brokers that don't know the value prop of the brand and don't know how to, in franchising, don't know how to hold a franchisee's hand through the process. So what ends up happening is they are, I hate to say it, but they're often treated poorly and not treated with the respect that they should get, because to that broker, that's just one deal, right? To us, it's many, many deals. And so you get the behavior that kind of comes along with that. And you can never really know that they are not pushing and promoting their own agenda, because you have to understand that in commercial real estate, a lot of these assignments of listing properties and property management assignments and having that listing are very valuable. They're very lucrative. So you could easily be swayed one way or the other to put those interests over your clients. Hopefully that answered your question about some key differentiators in our real estate model.
Oh, absolutely. It does. Oh, very much so does. Thank you so much again, man, for being on the podcast. Really, really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Jonathan, check out the links in the description.